other Sunday, so the first and third Sunday of every month. My name is Joshua Strobel. I am the communications manager for the Solus Project. And with me today we have Aiki. Aiki, if you want to introduce yourself for everyone.
So I'm Ike Doherty, and I'm the project founder of Solus, and the guy who you can blame for starting it all.
All right. And Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin. I'm a package manager and community manager, and I help with packaging and upgrading every piece of software.
Awesome. So in this session, we're going to be jumping into 1.2 stuff and our current work discussion. So what we have laid out for this month and maybe some items for the first 2 weeks. Because we do not rest. 1.1 may have just been released, but the work has just begun. So the first thing is current mass rebuilds are happening in Unstable. Aiki, do you want to talk about why these rebuilds are happening?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the defining things about Solus that a few people know is we do try and optimize everything we have for a desktop workflow. Now, what we're trying to do at the moment is optimize the packages we use for the hardware we're using. So instead of just having an optimized workflow, we want the packages to be compiled to use instructions that our processors actually support. As opposed to supporting something that's 15, 20 years old, we kind of want to limit ourselves to the last 10 years. And by doing so, we're going to be optimizing every single package we have in our repos for your hardware. So that process that you went out and spent a couple $100 on, you'll actually squeeze the juice out of it for once.
Now, so you said some of the implications of these optimizations might be, say, performance, but can we also expect some stuff potentially regarding battery life, actually? Because that's a big issue for laptop users.
Yeah, I mean, the more efficiently you do something, the less power you need to do that operation. So if you do even silly things like complex loops or uh, most people are going to be doing things that are multimedia orientated on Solus. So optimizing towards that means we do those things more efficiently, and we don't need that much of your battery anymore.
And more of that performance that is no longer going to Solus might actually be going to gaming, correct? Because one of the items for 1.2 is probably going to be fixing Steam. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I know there's a couple of things we really wanted to get done for 1.1, but so we might as well address the elephant in the room with that one. Um, we had to do the whole weighing the pros and cons of stalling the 1.1 release even further. Now, we stalled it as far as we could, but the simple fact remains we had security updates piling up, we had a lot of fixes coming through the packages, and the simple fact is the 1.0 ISO had a lot of problems with in certain configurations it wouldn't boot. So there's certain things like Steam that got held back a little bit longer. For 1.2, and obviously it will land in the repos before 1.2, will be the completely replaced Steam runtime. You can
Right.
still use theirs. I know people are going to say you can't replace it. Ours will be an alternative, a completely optimized and native alternative to the Steam runtime, specifically for Solus, which means you get nicer integration. It could be something very, very simple like the font rendering in Steam, or it could just be the fact that more games will work and they will work better because they're not using foreign libraries that have no real place in Solus at all, because these are for a very, very old version of Ubuntu. And again, as we said
Right.
multiple times, Solus is a modern operating system.
Yeah, I think some of them are from like 1204, right? Like, because I think Steam bases a lot of their libs off like the 1204 LTS still. So a lot of those libraries are really old, and
Yeah, like 4 years old already.
they're all 32-bit stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. But another elephant in the room, and this, I would say it personally affects me, but I'm actually quite content using the open source drivers. But FGLRX, so the AMD proprietary drivers, this is one of the sort of weighing the pros and cons as well for the 1.1 is we could have held back 1.1 and landed these drivers, but the reality is this is just a repo item in the end. So is that something that's going to be landing on 1.2? Is that, like, what's the timeline for the AMD proprietary drivers?
So again, it's something that will land in the repo beforehand. Uh, as with anything else we do in Solus, it'll go through the unstable repo first. We'll call
Right.
on members of the community who do have AMD hardware, and we'll test the two specific branches of the AMD driver. At which point we can identify which driver goes with which hardware. Um, because the website isn't quite accurate. Um, the new driver changes a lot of things and claims to be compatible with the older driver until you install it. So that, as you say, that would be a repo item, but that's definitely one of the biggest priorities we have now.
Right. So to clarify, this isn't like the Crimson driver work, correct? This is the like Catalyst. Yeah, which is good because Catalyst, unlike some of the newer Crimson stuff, actually supports more quote unquote legacy cards, like the one on my desktop, which isn't old at all, but AMD doesn't like to support it. So we're
Yeah, I
being
mean,
the good guys here, I guess, and supporting Catalyst.
yeah, I mean, at some stage we will have to support Crimson. There are going to be people who want it. So we did start work on the Crimson driver first, which
Okay.
claims to support all of these chipsets, but when we actually got playing with it, it basically lies. Um, because a while back we actually invested in AMD GPU for Justin to do some testing,
Right.
and at the time the new driver claimed that it would work on that machine, which was why we was getting it, and it lied. So we're going to prefer the older driver here because obviously we want wider support base.
Yes, I think what AMD support model is for the Crimson driver is only the Crimson beta is going to support legacy cards, but once it gets out of beta, then you're SOL. So it's going to be good that we could have Catalyst as well to fall for people to fall back on because it's just simply a more stable driver. But I mean that's all repo work and that's all hardware enablement. But sometimes people like pretty things. So can we expect some budgie improvements down the line for 1.2? Maybe some work in like the next like this month or something? Or
Well, I suppose I can be nice.
okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
So again, this has been a case of juggling priorities. But there's a couple of little things. Yeah, I see that getting written on the screen. All right. Categorically saying we will fix Alt Tab.
Yes. Yes, I've been waiting for this my entire life. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, there's a few things that do need fixing now, but we were we was having to get rid of a lot of the old bugs in Budgie, which they've survived basically 2 years.
Some of the outlets just as long, right?
Yeah, I mean, so just before we put out 1.0, I mean, that was literally within about a week of a complete rewrite of Budgie. So we went from the old Budgie, we went to Budgie 10 because we're too cool for Budgie 9.
Right. Yeah.
No references there.
Oh.
Completely innocent here. So I mean that was a complete and utter rewrite. So the last couple of months, with little bits of Budgie work we get done, was definitely stabilizing things.
Mhm.
But now that we can start doing a feature cycle again.
Right. So some of the features people have been requesting has been like, for instance, fixing Alt Tab, which that's more of a bug fix. But a weather applet that might tie into GNOME weather would be nice, or their lib GNOME weather, whatever GNOME calls it, I guess. And hot corners, maybe? Is that a possibility?
So I mean, it's a possibility, right?
Right.
So
because some people have shifted over from shell to
yeah.
the much lighter weight and frankly better budgie, but they're missing their hot corners for things like hitting that menu up in the top left. But I know there's been some debate on this because of the whole multi-display stuff, and sometimes shell could be a bit of a pain in the butt regarding that. So
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a usability issue of hot corners. So I wouldn't enable any default hot corners because that was one of the design decisions I initially did make with Budgie, having used GNOME Shell in the past. I mean, an example would be going to the top right of the screen to activate Raven. But the thing is, you could be going up to the top right of the screen to close a window.
Yep.
And you really don't want to see Raven flying out every time. Same with the top left, as you say, if you've got dual monitors,
Yep.
you really don't want to happen. So customizable hot corners, yes. I mean, personally, I'm not a fan of them personally, because I do think that it's something that people have got used to, but they kind of fly in the face of many design principles. So customizable, not used by default, but people want them. So if they want to go configure and add them, I give in. Fine, you win.
Yeah. And also another big thing, and this is more of a personal, like, this is something I would really love, and it's from the shell workflow, is window spread, right? So you could, with GNOME Shell, you could do a window spread, and all your windows would fly in like an expose sort of style, and you could pick that as an alternative to Alt-Tab. Can we see that at 1.2, or is that something that might be later down the line, if at all?
So, I mean, this answer comes twofold. I mean, one, it would be later down the line.
Right.
Two, I want to expressly make my position clear on this. So, it's no secret that personally, and this is not something I'm saying that reflects the position of the project, I hate GNOME Shell. I just no. So we could have a window overview mode. That's fine, right?
Right.
But that is where I will put my foot down and we go no further. Because I will not have a shell overview mode. Because when I first created Budgie, it was the one thing that I couldn't get rid of inside a GNOME Shell, which is why Budgie ended up being written from scratch and not a set of extensions. Had I been able to kill that in the first place, we could have been in a very different place in the world. But I absolutely cannot stand, I don't think I'm expressing that enough, but the shell overview mode. So a window overview mode, I'd say expose. Possibility, yes, I'm open to it. That's you're essentially adding different alt-tab behavior, aren't you? And then I can understand you probably hook that up to the hot corners or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, it would have to be stopped there. Like, it would be in giant letters. This is as far as this particular thing goes. Because I'm not going down that path.
Well, and plus each one of those individual features adds a bit of overhead as well. So, like memory overhead.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's not something you'd enable by default, because the fact is, to enable that, you're talking about mirroring the texture for every window you have on the screen, and I mean, this is a technicality of it. You're doing a mirror texture of every object on the screen, and then you're applying transformations on them. You know, it's gonna have overhead.
Real time and
yeah, so you've got additional frame buffer objects that you didn't need, and also it is heavier. It looks really pretty. Don't get me wrong, but it will apply overhead, so it would never be a default thing.
But before people could really even experience Budgie on Solus or all the wonders of this operating system, they need to actually be able to install it. And while we've done some work, some sort of band-aids on the current installer, word is that you are going to be completely rewriting the installer for 1.2. So
yeah, that's accurate. So I mean, we're not people to beat around the bush here. So the installer sucks. I am not going to try and cover that up. The current installer we have absolutely sucks, and there's a reason for it. It's very old. In software terms, the core of that installer goes back probably six and a half years. So it's very, very old, and it needs a lot of love. Now, whereas I could sit there and, you know, make it all pretty and keep it Python, yeah, I'm going to rewrite the whole thing in C, distro agnostic and installer agnostic core more appropriately, so nobody else ever has to rewrite an installer again. So just share the common functionality between all the installers. So in terms of features, you know, we will have the LVM, we will have the encryption on there, all the standard things you would expect out of an installer, it will have.
Like a separate home or maybe a separate var as well.
Sure, I mean, if people do want a separate home, but I mean, what people also have to keep in mind with that is, you know, our eventual aim for Solus, this is going to sound really douchey, but it's not to share your disk.
Right.
I mean, in terms of eventual aims, and the idea of a shared home doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, when you think about it, on a server, yes, it makes a lot of sense. You have one huge hard drive, right? But if you're sharing installations on a computer, sharing the home partition is about the worst thing you can do, because then you can have collisions of user accounts and permissions. So
Hmm.
what people should be really thinking about is sharing a data partition between
Right.
different installations, right? And each one of them has their own home partition, because your home should just be, a little bit of project work, a little bit of documentation. If you need to share binaries and things like that between them, I mean, one, you kind of shouldn't because of different operating systems. But if you need to do that, then do it on a shared data partition. So that's my view on it. But yes, mount points and things like that. If you want to fiddle with them, we will support them.
Awesome. Um, and one of the usability issues that people have been having with the current installer is like the host names need to be lowercase, and we don't really like address when it's not lowercase that it needs to be. So I assume this is something that'll be tackled in the new installer as well.
Yeah, 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 that's my fault.
Yeah, it's okay. We all make mistakes sometimes. We're all human.
I just
So
decided to make the hostname requirements a lot more strict just to avoid any potential problems because we saw with gnome initial setup, a lot of
right.
people were complaining about the requirements for the password,
Hmm.
and after all that, it wasn't validating the username at all. So I got,
Right.
yeah, which was
They
like,
they complain about the password, but then you could set your username to be like all caps or something.
yeah, I mean, it was completely anal about the passwords as well. It had to be a minimum of 16 letters, include 4 blood groups, and a postal code. That it was that kind of limitation. His username is like spaces, pound signs. Go for it. So
Right.
I got very strict on the usernames and host names.
But some of the work, which affects more of our lives than anyone else's, but is like web infrastructure. So, Justin, you have been sort of tinkering with Mirrorbrain, correct? For like ISO improvements and ISO distribution improvements. Is there any work that could be done in 1.2 to land that for improving sort of our initial on ramp for users?
Yeah, certainly. Mirrorbrain is a system to enable mirrors for and scan them for when they're up. If they're full, they're have the correct packages or sorry
Right.
ISOs, and so it enables sort of dynamic adding and subtracting of mirrors if they're offline or online,
Hmm.
and yeah, managing them with geolocation. So if you are in France, it'll point you to the nearest mirror. If you're in
Right.
Texas, it'll point to the nearest mirror. So it'll enable more load balancing, I guess, for all of our servers.
Right. And we actually take security, very, very personally here, and it's actually a really high priority. So with Mirrorbrain, are we going to be able to do like real time or very, very often be able to do security audits on these Mirrorbrain like mirrors?
Yeah, so Mirrorbrain, the actual mirror director, as it's called, actually does periodical rsync checks. So it actually checks the client mirror to see if that
Hmm.
is actually the actual exact same file. So it'll check as rsync does when it checks a file, it'll check the sum or the SHA-256 sum or something like that to make sure
Right.
it is exactly the same file as we uploaded.
Awesome. And something, so if you've ever taken a look at the Solus Project build page where sort of you could see all the work we do, I mean, this is just my opinion, but it's pretty bland and sometimes it doesn't expose all the sort of information we need. So I'm going to be working this cycle on printing that up, doing like metrics graphics. So you get to see how long a build time takes in correlation with the last build time, optional browser notifications for when a build is complete, or email notifications and so forth. So that should be landing this cycle. And is there any other stuff? Oh, wine, Justin. So as we all know, and as we all know, this is just no secret that wine currently doesn't work like for everything, right? Like for instance, I tried OpenSpades, and there was a lot of like 32-bit issues. So when we address some 32-bit libraries this cycle, can we also see Wine maybe improve?
Yeah, I think so. With Wine, one of the major issues was there is no sound, which was told by one of our users. So we need to get Pulse enabled with 32-bit, which is going to be a very fun task because there's a lot of dependencies we got to go upstream for that.
Right.
So yeah, that's going to be a fun one, and we're working with Ike on that one to get those sorted out. The main one I think was Dbus, was it, Ike?
Yeah, so the main blockers in there are UDEV, which more commonly known today as System D. Yeah, I trolled. I went there. But we need debus as well, which then needs PAM, which then needs Flex, which then needs Bison, which then needs. There's a few of them.
Yeah.
The rabbit hole goes deep.
Right. Yeah, I was taking a look at because I was like, oh, OpenSpades needs SD like 32-bit SDL2. I was like, all right, let's just take a look. I'm like, oh no, that's right. It requires all these different dependencies, which require dependencies, and it's like, wow, what a rabbit hole. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of work.
I went to rebuild one the other day, and I thought I checked the log as it was going through, and I looked at it, and I saw about 30-something dependencies of 32-bit libraries. I managed to enable about 12 of those, of what we already have, but there's still about 20 left, and obviously, as you said, dependencies of dependencies.
Right. Well, that's a lot of fantastic progress already on improving Wine and 32-bit support. Well, multi-lib support, I should say.
I mean, if I may, because people listening to this are gonna be like, wait, don't you guys like automate stuff? So just to clarify what we mean, like when we're enabling 32 packages, in the vast majority of cases, it simply means adding the word emul32 : yes to a package, and that's basically its setup. Probably have a diff of about 4 lines to a package to turn it to do 32-bit and 64-bit at the same time. Sometimes you get a blocker package, and that stops that bit of the chain. So that's all that is. And then obviously there's other priorities going on at the same time. So I mean, for the likes of Wine, once we've done all the enabling on Wine, funny enough, we've done all the enabling on TeamViewer on Skype. That all gets done in a one go, so it's not just specifically Wine here. It's more of a 32-bit ecosystem for developers who didn't get the memo that 64-bit has been here for the last decade on every single computer in the world.
Can we talk to Valve about that as well, please?
Yeah, somebody please do. Please do. But yeah, I mean, it's not something that's a massive bit of work. It's just doing the juggling, really.
Right. Well, I think what the issue with Valve is they're sort of waiting for Half-Life 3 to come out before they push 64-bit support, so I might be waiting a while.
You wouldn't know.
Yeah. So we have some questions. So I figured we could do a quick Q&A. We have a couple questions from Nikki. So he says, Solus is using GNOME stack. How fast can we expect that the stack to be updated to 320, 322, and so on? Primary reason why I use Arch over Ubuntu is how far behind the package updates is. Don't want Solus to turn into the same thing. So we covered some of this in our roadmap, like our 1.0 and beyond blog, about what our cycle is going to sort of be like. But Ike, can you sort of highlight some of the, like maybe the GNOME stack changes that might happen throughout releases or point releases, or?
Yeah, so we do not update the GNOME version in a stable release. So people are going to panic when they hear that. It's going to go, I'm not going to get new GNOME. However, there are 2 stable GNOME releases a year, and we do one Solus release. Words, my brain just broke there. We do one Solus release every year as well. So we shipped in December with the 3.18, which 3.18 was released in September. So 3.20 will be released in March, which we will not ship. 3.22 will be shipped in September. Now, in December, we'll be shipping the next Solus, which would then have GNOME 3.22 by default.
Awesome. So
I
yeah, go on.
Well, I was just going to say that we kind of go for the whole stable core, up-to-date apps policy. Like,
Right,
given that we
which sort of
don't
ties
use
into the
GNOME,
next question.
yeah, I mean we don't use GNOME shell itself, so there's no real staggering benefit to jumping up the next GNOME version,
Right.
given that it is going to break every theme that was ever invented. But
Mm.
saying that 3.20 is actually stabilizing that, which I'm really glad about. So by the time we get to 3.22, the most of the theme and framework will be set in stone. They've done a lot of work there, so that's kind of handy.
Right. I mean, it's not like we just shipped 3.18.0 and then, just let it stagnate there. Justin has been doing a lot of great work on keeping the GNOME stack and GTK stack up to date. Like occasionally I'll see like, oh, a new GNOME calendar, new GNOME documents or something. So Justin, you've actually been doing a lot of great work on keeping that up to date because GNOME does push point releases, so it's not like things are stagnating or there's like no like bugs that are being left behind in the GNOME stack. So, but Nikki stated so the same applies to other non-GNOME packages. How fast can we expect them to be updated to the latest version? Not compromising stability, of course. So we have this policy of like updated apps and stable core. So if it's realistic to update an application, with some exceptions like maybe PHP, of course, or other major languages that have like big API ABI changes, uh, those aren't going to change often, or maybe they'll change in major releases. But uh, our policy is updated apps, so I mean expect that, I guess. If
I
any of you want to chime in with something.
mean, the main thing that we try to avoid in Solus is breaking API.
Right.
It's actually very, very important, and it's been quite hard to do. That's why actually the 1.0 to 1.1 upgrade is complicated in Solus, because we had no choice but to break the ABI of the distribution. That was because there were some problems that just had to be rectified, like the Unicode issue in Python, which of course required a mass rebuild of every Python package.
Yes.
So obviously the first thing we see when we're going to an update is, do we actually need it? Like, just because it's shiny, just because it exists, does it add any kind of value whatsoever to the distribution, right?
Right. I mean, some releases are like, yeah, we fixed something in the man pages. It's like, no, we're not gonna push that just because they fixed something in the man pages, for instance.
Right, and then you got 30 other changes which broke a configuration or something. It's like that, just no
Right.
point. If it's security, first of all, we'll try and go for a backport approach. So if if CV check tools picked up something or one of the other audit processes,
Right.
we'll try to go for a patch first. But for applications, this does not include things like gedit, by the way. I know I know this is a frequent argument I see on other forums. It's like, but if you have 3.18, can I have gedit 3.20? Not really, because it's a text editor.
Right.
It's not a very fancy one either. It's part of the GNOME stack, so you should, for now, you should consider it part of the operating system.
Right.
Firefox, VLC, LibreOffice, all the sexy stuff that you actually care about, that stuff, yeah, we'll update it.
All right. So next one is more a bit. This is definitely oriented towards you, Aki. Aki mentioned he started to use Rust and will do so in future projects. Is there something already cool in the pipeline? Will Rust have an impact for future features of Budgie or Solus? This is a good one because I believe your words were something along the lines of like, "This is a better C." No, I'm just kidding. But you did actually have some high remarks. But you did have some high remarks for Rust, so I'm actually interested in this one as well.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone knows I'm a bit of a C nut. I mean, there's no excuse to that. So my problem with C really doesn't actually come with C itself. It's projects that are going by ancient practices and compiling with C89. I'm kind of looking at UGlib. So that kind of stuff really bugs me, and then having to trace leaks and really bad libraries. So that kind of stuff sometimes puts me off C. If I'm starting a new project, I don't mind using C, but Rust is a very strong contender. Now, the only thing that's stopping me from going more hardcore into Rust, really could have used a different set of words there. Um, just gonna sail past that. The only thing that's really stopping me with Rust at the moment, in terms of a distribution model, it's not quite there yet. So for us, we'd want to package up the modules, which isn't so easy at the moment. I mean, they are working it, and there are active issues on GitHub for this, which is absolutely great. But until then, the deployment model needs to change.
The
So
deployment
cargo,
model is a mess.
yeah, I mean, cargo is nice, but we don't want to have every single package rebuilding every single dependency every time, and each one of
Right.
those dependencies coming out differently, because that's not why you have packages.
Right.
Packages share the commonality. Then you have these fixed moments in time you can build against. Rust as a language, though, it definitely took me getting some used to, and I definitely would use it for future projects. I maybe have some things up my sleeve.
Mhm.
I actually have a few things up my sleeve, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, once the distribution model is sorted out, then it's something we could look to. For So I would like to say we'd use it for something like Budgie, but it's not going to happen.
Right.
There's a reason why. It's GTK using glib.
Right.
Some
I
of the
figure it's more
practices,
along the lines of bindings.
yeah, I mean, it's not just that. Rust is a real nice language, and everything that it tries to do, the design of G-object makes very, very difficult. Even with the
Mhm.
bindings, it makes it very, very difficult because internally glib is completely reference counted, and that's not how Rust works.
Right.
Rust, you just have something and you promise not to break it, essentially.
Right. So we have another question. I compile Android CyanogenMod, but for that we need to install a lot of packages for setting up the dev environment. My question is that can I set up the dev environment on Solus for building Android? And there has been some open bugs for this, and I believe some of it revolves around 32-bit libraries as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is the thing with
Right.
everybody being obsessed with 32-bit libraries. But once we have all the 32-bit libraries, what we would like is for those in the community who are doing things like building Android, whether they're building the runtime or they're building the apps, to work with us so that we can enable it for them. Because at the end of the day, we're adding things to the distribution to support this task specifically, which is to support, building Android. So we can be flexible in how we're doing it, i.e., we can deliver the best possible experience to do so if we have the community feedback on that.
Right. Well, thank you all for all your questions. They've been really great for our first session. I wasn't expecting such great questions, to be honest. But we're always in need of more code monkeys, particularly like C or Vala or packagers. Or if you feel like maybe those are a bit too over your head, even getting involved in just providing support to newcomers in IRC is a real help. So you could always poke IKey, Justin, or myself in #Solus, #Solus-chat, or #Solus-dev on Freenode. And if you would like to maybe donate so we could get some new hardware, for instance, to enable some NVIDIA hardware, I believe it was Optimus or something, we do have a Patreon. I believe the Patreon is patreon.com/Solus. Is that correct?
That sounds about
Yes.
right.
Yeah. So we really want to thank all of our existing supporters, patrons, testers, donors for all your hard work. Not only did you make 1.0 possible, but you made 1.1 I don't know, I think the best release it has to be the best release we've ever had, of course. And we've been able to fix so many bugs with your support and enable a lot of hardware that we didn't otherwise expect to be able to. And also, we've been able to add a lot of packages to the repo because before, our repo is a bit smaller, and thanks to the support of patrons, we were able to expand our web infrastructure, and that meant more room in the repository. So that means a lot more packages. Yay!
I mean, talking about that expansion, we went. So the start of the project, I mean, people probably don't actually realize how much we've grown since then. At the start of the project, we started off on a 20 gigabyte SSD on a cloud VPS.
Right.
Now, that hosted the forums, the main website, the wiki, the downloads, and the package repo, all in that 20 gig SSD. At the time when we first started, I was building on the old Core 2 Q6600, which I managed to kill. I also managed to eat a hard drive with that computer as well. So I mean, we've
Nice.
gone from that to having builds that will happen day or night, like running 24-hour build services now. We on a beast, I might add.
On that is such an understatement. That's a
But
one step below like a quantum compute, like a quantum supercomputer. That thing is rock solid.
and we call it Toadstool. Um,
That's what we call it? I've never heard it being called that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it just came up on IRC the other day. The other
we
thing
gotta.
is now the new repo that we're now paying for. If anyone's interested, it's actually 69.99 euros before tax every month, which works out it's just shy of 90 euros every month. So that gives us 2 terabytes storage, and that's in RAID as well. So we have the data integrity there. It's unmetered bandwidth completely. That's an Intel Xeon, and I believe that one has. I can't remember if it had 8 gigs of RAM or 16. I'd have to SSH into it later, but that's what's now providing the Solus repo, and it's enormous. And we've only been able to get to that point with the community support. So now we can
Right.
add in a lot bigger packages and a hell of a lot more packages, and in the future multiple repos.
Indeed. Well, I want to thank everyone for this Sunday with Solus session. It's been great. It's been great for the first one, a lot smoother than I think any of us expected. So our next one, oh my goodness, I need to actually pull up the calendar because, okay, so the next one should be on the 20th of March, about the same time. We started a bit late. This one, we started about 50 minutes late, but that's not a problem.
I was
So it
doing my
will,
hair.
yeah. It looked great, by the way. No one could see it, but it looked fantastic.
I
Except
gave
me.
him one preview. I gave him one preview of me.
Okay.
Right. Now, if you have any small children, dogs, or hamsters with heart issues, now would be a good time to flee the country.
Okay.
But
Oh my God, there he is in his
yeah,
his,
they
his
call
usual hat.
my
Yeah.
usual
Yeah.
attire. They call me the Bewilder Beast.
Is that
Um,
right?
so I'm gonna switch that off now because I'm making myself feel uncomfortable.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's not
Well,
something you want looking back at you.
right, yeah. I want to thank everyone, and have a good Sunday. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
Bye.